Hello and welcome back to Pass the Torch. This is going to be a really fun, unique episode. I am in person with Michael Robinson, and he has agreed to sit down with me and just have a little bit more of an open-ended chat, a little bit of just some shop talk and a couple things that we have been discussing as we've gotten to know each other over the last couple weeks after the interview, and I was able to come out and visit him in person. So thank you for being here, for doing this with me.
You're most welcome.
Okay, so I have a few just general structured topics that I would like to present, but I don't have any formal questions for
Cool. Okay, it suits me.
you. So the first one is simple isn't easy.
Yes, no, I would agree with that. It's very easy to hide faults or imperfections in detail. You can actually relate this back to diamonds, actually. You look at a radiant cut diamond with all of its fuzzy sparkles, you put a fingerprint on there and you'll hardly notice. But like an emerald cut with just this big bold flashes of step facets, like you would notice it dirty instantly. So yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. This is one that I've been thinking through for a couple months now. Some of the best jewelers in the world really cut their teeth with a lot of years of repair.
Well, I know personally I cut my teeth on repairs. Well, actually, I started out just making jewellery, but my first real paid job was repairs for like about 3 years. The great thing about repairs is you learn where jewellery fails. You learn where jewellery wears out. You learn what fails, what's not durable. So it helps you in terms of like building things that are going to be durable and last.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
And I found I just recently took a repair job a couple days a week to just get exposure to more metals and more stone types and just earn my stripes a little bit. In a way, I feel like it's making me a better jeweler, not because I'm going faster, though I am.
Yeah.
Because I'm diversifying the pieces that I work on instead of just the pieces that I make.
Yeah, now you get to handle and see other people's work, or, well, most of it probably isn't other people's work. Most of it's probably just pumped out of a factory. But you get to see different things. I guess it's like if you read a lot of books, you'd be a better writer, and if you only ever were in the presence of your own writing. So yes, I would highly recommend doing it. Just don't do it for too long.
That's a good. Well, how many years?
I think I did it for about 3 years.
Okay.
And after the first year, it's pretty soul destroying, but you just have to stick with it. I guess it's like going to school for anything. You need to stick with it and embrace the frustration for a little while just to really soak it all in.
Yeah. I have spent a while thinking about what I consider to be the highest forms of art in the jewelry world. I think that not all of it is high jewelry, and there are certain aspects and skills that people develop that I would consider to be really fine. And so I have them listed as enameling, stone setting, fabrication, chasing and repoussé, and on occasion, if it's the right person, gouache.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's subjective for everybody. Everybody's going to have their own interpretation. And within each of those mediums, there are people that aren't great at those, and there are people that do take it to a high level. But then even in repairs, I'm sure there's people that work at an elite level. I think you're probably singling out those people because in the mainstay, they're not the run-of-the-mill jewelry making a playing game or something like that. So to do something that's different, people that are attracted to it are normally the people that care more. So it's more, I think, about the people doing those things than the things themselves.
And I realize that I may not have mentioned, I have it written down here, but I want to make sure that I include hand engraving. I don't know, I don't remember if I said it.
Yeah.
But for sure including hand engraving.
Again, I guess all of those are like decorative flourishes on top of making something, aren't they? We're like taking things to the next level. And again, you have to care to do something extra. So that's maybe where it's that final high level.
Yeah. And your personal ethos as a jeweler is that you hand fabricate everything. Can you tell me why?
Honestly, in the very beginning, maybe like about 25 years ago in New Zealand, I was just so frustrated with the casting companies. I would put a lot of work into hand carving a beautiful wax, and I'd get back this porosity riddled casting that was just like seeing somebody tear up your drawing sort of thing. It was just so sad. So then I started hand making everything, and then I started to want to make the metalwork actually disappear and focus just on the stone. So my metalwork was getting finer and finer, which when you hand make something, the metal's obviously denser. I don't know the size behind it. Is it atomically or whatever? The molecules are like compressed, so it makes for a more durable metal that I can whittle away and have less metal there. Whereas if it was a cast metal where the metal's having to flow and expand into the casting, then you end up with like a less dense metal, so you need more metal there to have the same structure. So by hand making everything, I was able to have finer work and focus more on the metal. And now, honestly, I mean, I still work that way, but now it's just like casting something would seem too easy. I kind of like the challenge. I think I might have mentioned it in our previous chat, but like the world doesn't need jewelry at all. It's a total luxury. Every like mall store and everywhere you look, like the world is drowning in consumer type products and things. The world doesn't need another piece of jewelry, so if I do anything, I'm going to put the most amount of effort into doing it properly and not do anything that makes something quicker. I'm going to like really enjoy the process of creating it so that it exists for a purpose.
And you've told me before that you like to put as many little special details.
Yeah, again, it's just as much of me as I can put into something. And for me, making something is about making something. It's not about having something. So again, the more amount of time, like I love looking at a piece and knowing that there isn't an inch of it that hasn't been worked by me. Like the front, the back, the inside, everything has been considered and worked and gone over. I forget what the initial thing was, but
well, and you just have so many little nods to a story within your pieces, and I think I'm gonna wait for the siren to go by.
Yeah, the city's happening.
I love to see when there's a clear story that's told all the way through the piece. And what I love to see when I see it, because there are artists out there doing it, is the storytelling from even the smallest detail, even from the metal pour, where there's intention behind it. I think it comes across as a more powerful, impactful overall story. And I just think that that's why we're here. That's why we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I kind of look at every project as like being given a blank book, like a blank book of pages to tell your story and to be able to give something to the audience. So like, why would you only write something or draw something on the first page? Like I would fill up the whole page with words and drawings so that the audience has like something to pique their interest. And that's the same when I'm making something. Like, why not make the back beautiful? Why not add detail upon detail and just really give people an interesting like poem to listen to?
That's so cool. Okay, this is my personal hot take,
Mhm.
if you will. I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but I think there is a stigma with jewelers, and you and I have talked about this before, that they present sometimes a bit disheveled.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I think it's really important, especially, it's one thing if you have like a hobbit hole of a studio where no one ever comes into and no one ever goes out. It really doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. But if you're in a retail space, particularly, I think it's really important, even if you're still, you have to, when you're in the shop, you have to wear shop clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you just are, putting a little bit of effort into presentation, I particularly have a hot take when there's a trade show or some like professional event. I don't want to see jewelers casual.
Yeah.
I want to see them take pride in the presentation the same way that they take pride in their work.
Mm-hmm. I can totally see that point of view. I'm not going to be on anybody's best dressed list ever, or like be a total fashion guy. I like well-made things, and it extends with clothing. I just recently got these jeans. The cotton's grown in America. It's milled in America. It's sewn in America, and I love that. They're maybe not the best looking jeans, but I love the craft of them. I think it comes back to what you were saying. I think like just having pride in what you do. I don't think necessarily you have to wear like a tuxedo or anything like that. But if you're working with clients and trying to gain their trust, like how are they going to trust that you're going to take care of their project if you can't take care of like brushing your hair or cleaning your clothes? So I think there's like a level there of like presenting yourself in a way that looks like you take care of things.
Well, I've always just viewed it as respectful to other people, right? Like if there's, disheveledness, it makes them think I'm imposing or I'm in a space that I'm not supposed to be in.
Yeah.
If you look prepared, then they feel welcome to come in.
Yeah. I can see that. I guess everybody has to be authentic to themselves. If they're really like don't care about anything else other than what they're making, ultimately what they're doing matters most. But I agree, just for like humanity's sake, we should all be kind of clean and take care of like, especially if we're welcoming other people into like being around us. I would agree with you there.
So not to say it's a vacuum show, it's not, but I definitely think that there's a level of curation into every aspect of a studio, a workspace, objects, people.
Yeah.
All of it. Intentionality. So you and I have had a few conversations, and I would love if you delve into your ideas on maybe how the jewelry world can evolve. And we have kind of bounced around this idea of a potential critic for jewelry, the same way that there's like a Michelin star for food, that there would be some sort of level of standard that was at least not imposed, but implemented.
Rewarded,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I haven't really got the answer figured out yet. I guess in some of the conversations I've shared, I would just love it if jewelry was a little more honest and authentic and giving, and not so much about like bragging about what people can do or just using like PR marketing type lingo to get sales. Like I wish it was more about giving and expressing rather than like wanting. Because everybody's about wanting attention, about wanting the next sale. And I think it can make people seem or give the industry a sense of being like a little cheesy used car salesman-y. because everybody's got the same sort of like marketing language, and it just doesn't feel authentic. And like jewelry writing and things that are out there, people, it's always positive. Like, have you ever read an article about jewelry or a jeweler that's like authentically honest and a little bit negative? Like, you would have never heard about a negative jewelry article. And like, and if jewelry was to be considered an art form, which most people say they want it to be, like every other art form has like a movie critic or a fashion critic or an art critic. But in jewelry, most marketing is, or stories are like, because you take marketing out in the magazine or because you've paid for an article, and it just means that every article kind of sounds very similar and doesn't seem very authentic. So yeah, I'd like some greater transparency and honesty around there. I'd love somebody to have an independent voice and share their opinions without worry about losing advertising or worry about not being invited to the next event or annoying somebody. Like, if something needs to be said, I wish it could be said.
Yeah. Well, and it's confusing. Mm-hmm. It's very confusing very often, the language that gets used without any accountability.
Yeah.
So there's just, someone saying something is handmade and like what.
Who's there to like judge it or to like review it or like, I see it all the time. People claim things that you can see just blatantly aren't true.
Right.
But like, and I hear other jewelers speaking to other jewelers about it, but the public has no idea.
Right.
I just wish we were all more honest and authentic to the public. And I do wish there was somebody to call it out, but as I'm saying that, I know somebody might be listening to this and think, oh, I can do that. But then I know that they're probably going to get sponsorship from like a big company, and they're probably going to be like pushing their friends, and like, really needs to be somebody like smart and thoughtful without any vested interests, and just all their focus is on like furthering jewelry as an art form and like championing people that deserve it, and not beating people up or being a troll, but like, if something needs to be said, then it should be said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's, especially, we won't say a name, but there's one example where someone claimed CAD rendering as a depiction of their work. Yeah,
I've seen CGI computer renderings claimed to be handmade without any notification that it's a computer generated image. And when people comment on how amazing it is, the person will just say thank you. And I said, like, to myself in my head, because I speak to myself all the time in my head, I said that would be like walking up to Tobey Maguire on the street and saying, wow, I love the way you can swing from buildings when you're wearing a Spider-Man suit. And Tobey Maguire just saying, thanks, yeah, it's fun. It's like, no, like, it's not reality. So yeah, I just love if there was some accountability and some like authenticity in what people are saying. I know there is, but there's way too much that isn't.
Yeah. How do you feel about CAD?
Not something that interests me personally. It's something I've spoken on quite a bit in the past, and I always seem to get quite a lot of prickly hate back towards me. So, like, what do I think about it? There's totally a place for it, in making certain things. Those certain things I would class as product, not as art. I think if you're wanting to make art or make something special, I don't think CAD does it. Number one, again, with CAD, you end up with a casting. And casting has, like, its great points. It's reproducible. reproducible. That's the biggest thing, I think. But it has its drawbacks, like it often has porosity or microporosity, and I often have this debate with myself about where the moment of creation happens. Like in a casting, nowadays people push a button on a vacuum, great big casting machine. So the thought of something being actually made by the push of a button doesn't seem that special to me. Sure, you might finish it by hand, you might set stones in it by hand, but where it's made, the actual moment of creation starts from the push of a button on a casting machine. I don't think that's particularly special. But that's more about what's special. Sorry, to go back to the question, CAD, it has its place. It's just not for me. I think because the fact that anything can be handmade, the reason why people choose to go the CAD 3D printed route is normally all through business decisions. It's faster, it's easier, it's reproducible, it's like meets all these different things. All those things are business decisions. And when you're making something with business decisions, I think you're making a product. And I don't want to make products. I want to make something really special, something close to art. And I think to do that, you really have to put all of yourself into it and create it with your hands rather than the push of buttons.
Yeah, the difference between a mass product jeweler and an artisan jeweler is exactly what we're talking about.
And in saying that, one isn't better than the other.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to buy something special or a piece of art, then something handmade is the way to go. Now, in handmade, you can get crappy handmade, you can get good handmade. But even if it's a crappy handmade piece, it's still of the person that made it. So if you're wanting something special and a connection to the creator, then that's handmade. If you're wanting something just fun and playful and more friendly on your pocketbook, then CAD's actually better than in that instance. So again, I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm not saying that I'm better because I handmade or that you're not worthy because you chose to CAD 3D print something. I'm just saying they're very different. And for me, I want to go the handmade.
Well, and I think that's the point of confusion, and that's what exactly we're referencing is that very often there's the product being labeled as the art, and that's where that gets a little bit frustrating.
Comes back to authenticity again, being like true to what it is you're doing. And if you're wanting to attract people wanting artistic things, people often use artistic language to describe things. I mean, there's nothing artistic about a 3D print. Like you literally hit print and the machine makes the piece. So that's not handmade, it's made by a computer controlled machine. And you can hit print and you can hit an infinite number of identical prints. Which again, I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying it's different and it suits a different purpose. So I've totally lost track of where I was going.
Well, yesterday you and I were having a conversation that I thought was really interesting about value and where we actually value the artistry. And we had talked about this example of someone who carves a wax. And that one gets a little tricky because then you're like, where does the art start?
Yeah, a hand-carved wax, I think, can be a very artistic medium. But I said to you, like, if there was an artist that I very much admired and she chose to do hand-carved waxes for her products, personally, I would much rather have the hand-carved wax that she had created rather than the casting. Because the hand-carved wax that she's created has been in her hands, has been like a function of her intention and her processes. But then all of that hard work actually gets melted away in the investment and becomes nothing. Like it literally becomes a void of nothing. And then the casting is just like a copy, like tries to like fill in and make the piece again in the casting. But her work has actually like been melted and cremated and disappeared. And then the casting is just a copy of it. I would much rather have her wax carving. But again, that's because that's what I hold special, and that's what's valuable to me, the connection to another human in art. That's where I see the value, not the goal value. Like, I want the connection to the artist.
Right. The last thing that they touched.
Yeah. So sorry to come back, like, that is a bit of a grey area. Where is the art and where is the point of creation? Because the casting comes from the push of a button, but her hand-carved wax comes from her love and her hands. That's where I see the value. There's nothing wrong with the casting. Other people see value in that, and that's fine. But I want the connection to the artist.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
And it's the people that are attracted to me and what I do. People that want the representation of my thoughts and my feelings and my life experiences.
What is your favorite story to tell in jewelry?
My favorite is things that make me smile or make me laugh or make me giggle internally. I try to capture those stories and feelings and emotions in my work in the hopes that it can like make people feel like a kid again or make them smile or basically to share my moment and my emotions and that connection through the work.
I think you've done a really great job protecting your childlike imagination. Mm-hmm. You've described that you don't know too much about the outside jewelry world, which is great.
Yeah.
And I love that.
No, I try to avoid the outside jewelry world as much as possible. I actually want you to do the same thing because we all have this spark of like passion. I think like when we're playing with Play-Doh or blocks, like we all have the spark of like happiness. And then when you get around other people, they always want to like mold you into like a scroll must be engraved this certain way or you must do it this sort of way because they're doing it that way. And I just think that's silly again to come back to like writing. Like if you got told you had to write a certain way or tell a certain story, like it can be suffocating. Yeah. So yeah, I try to avoid humans in general, especially jewelry humans.
Well, you're very kind to connect with me. Thank you for.
You haven't been spoiled too much by other jewelry.
Because I'm so new.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Those are kind of my points that I wanted to bring up. Is there anything else that you want to add? Because I know that you are incredibly contemplative, and you also do a lot of writing. Can you share some of the other art that you create? Yeah,
I think everything's. If you do it with intention, it's all creation. I think my whole life is just about creation. It's like I don't try, I just have to do things. So I love like restoring furniture and doing woodwork and ceramics. It's not, I think people sometimes think doing different things is too precious. But it's really not. It's all just doing. If you're like bending a piece of metal, you can bend like clay. If you're cutting metal, you can cut wood and you can cut stone and you can cut like paper and like it's all movements. It's all movements of your hands and hand-eye coordination. So yeah, just being creative. I guess I would say don't limit yourself and just go where the journey takes you.
I think it's quite clever that you have been gouaching comic books.
Oh yeah.
You showed me the other day. Hopefully he'll let me share them.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just I was in my favorite secondhand bookstore, and there was this kid's coloring book from like the 60s. I think it was a Charlie Brown one. And the paper was oxidized with such a beautiful golden sort of like color on the paper. It had a few pages colored in with crayons that a kid had done, but most of them were blank. And I thought, I want to color in this coloring book, but I didn't want to color in what was there because, again, it was suffocating. It was too restrictive. So I drew my own picture working in amongst what was already on the page. It's almost like again, in rap music, how people will take a sample from a song and then turn it into something new. So I kind of riffed on what was off the page and put a design on there and then painted and colored it in. Just felt kind of interactive, and it's always fun to color outside the lines. So yeah, they turned into from one painting into now I think I've done 20 of them.
Yeah, they're so cool and they're so detailed.
I mean, if you're going to do something, why not do it properly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had fun with those.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Any other thoughts or things that you've been...
I guess in saying you spoke about writing, I guess my writing is like a chance for me to say more than my visuals are able to say and to be able to share. Because obviously things I do visually can be interpreted many different ways. Obviously writing can also, but like I can be a little more black and white in my words and share how much things mean to me and some of my thoughts in a way more quicker, easily understandable way to connect with people and to say things that, again, my visuals just can't say. That's why I chose to do that.
So you plan on putting out some writing, some poetry?
I will do, yeah. I've got a whole bunch of writing actually done, which I just wrote on my phone. It didn't feel authentic for me to share it in that digital way. My handwriting is good, but it can get a little bit messy, so I'm going to type it up. I collect antique typewriters. I'm going to type it up on my antique typewriter. Because that way it feels like it's more of my hand, and then I can just make photocopies of it and share it in more of an analog way rather than a digital way. Again, I want that connection for people to feel like they're actually sitting there with me when they're reading it.
I have experienced that your ethos behind all of your work, regardless of what discipline it is to elevate the experience at every possible opportunity.
Yeah, I guess I've come to learn I'm an incredibly sentimental, romantic, kind of thoughtful dude. And I know things mean a lot to me. Even when I'm drawing, I normally use antique pencils, I find, because I love the thought of what was written or drawn with the piece of the pencil that was missing or what it could have drawn. It feels like almost like the words or the pictures are already in the pencil. And I collect different things because they hold a lot of sentimentality to me. And it's like, I know what's special to me, and I guess I project that there's other people out there that also hold things so dear. And I just want to be able to make it, I guess. Sorry, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm thinking as I speak. The thought of anybody looking at anything I've ever done, I'm so grateful that they've taken the moment to pause in their busy life to look at something I've done. You need to respect that care that the audience is giving you to take the time to look at what you've done. I feel like the greatest way to respect that is to pour all of myself into anything I do and to not take any shortcuts and to be incredibly authentic and genuine and just unload my soul into anything I do. That's how I feel like I respect the time of the person that now or 100 years in the future picks something up. I hope that all that care is translatable, and that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. What you just said reminded me of actually marriage vows
Mhm.
in the way that it says to have and to hold. And there was a great comedian recently who had this bit about how we're great at having, right?
Mhm.
You're always good at buying the next thing, getting the
Yeah.
new upgrade, getting the iPhone, getting whatever it is, the brand new car with the backseat warmers.
Yeah.
Is the example that
Yeah.
you use. But we're terrible at holding.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? I was thinking about my jeans that I'm wearing. Like, the last pair I wore before this, like, and you see other people that buy, like, ripped jeans with holes in them and stuff like that. But to me, like, this was the darkest, freshest wash straight out of the indigo dye. I want to know that all the wear on these jeans are my wear. Like, they're badges of honor. And I love, like, I've got t-shirts with holes in them that I'll sew up and put little patches in. They're like authentic. I think it's just that connection to like another human again. Like, these are my wear and my stories and my things. So like, to me, again, seeing people buy worn out jeans, but they want the newest iPhone, like, that doesn't really make sense. They're buying the jeans because they want to look like they've lived in it and they've got all these experiences and lived a life. Like, the new iPhone is like a soulless factory made product. Like, why are you chasing the new but valuing the history in your torn jeans? Like, I don't know, it's just something precious about having lived a life, and I'm sure that's what people are celebrating in their holy jeans. Not that I have anything against new iPhones, but
No, it's more a reference to like the gluttony of just constantly like having a perfectly good phone.
Yeah.
Having something that's perfectly satisfactory, but just needing the new for the sake of the new.
Yeah.
And I think when in our, in our dissertation or like our discipline, in our discipline, we put so much effort into an intention into the creation. We hope that people hold it.
Yeah.
The same way we have through the creation process.
Yeah. You probably can't see it on camera, but on the wall there's a drawing by Daniel Rush. And I'm thinking about a story his wife told me. His work is very detailed, even his drawings. And his wife once at an exhibition of his work. To explain his work, it's a bunch of lines drawn on a page. He takes a breath, loads up his pen with ink, and then draws that line with his breath until the ink runs out on the line, and then he'll start again with a new breath. And there's like thousands of lines on the painting. So that it's very much like it's like capturing his breath and his heartbeat in the line as he draws it. And his wife once said at one of his exhibitions that she saw people looking at the work and breathing in the same way, like appreciating the art that he did as he was creating it. And it's just the most beautiful thought to think like you capture somebody's attention and take them there to watch your heartbeat and your breath on a page, and they're engrossed enough that they start breathing and appreciating it. It's almost like reading the grainy lines on a record or something. It's just such a beautiful thought, capturing somebody's attention and sharing that moment with them and what's being created.
Have you ever toyed with the idea of death to the author? Have you ever thought about that?
What do you mean by that?
Like, very often art goes out into the world and then the artist is not there to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think particularly in my generation, we do a lot of over-explaining.
Yeah.
And I wish we would just sort of allow, even if it's a misinterpretation of a piece, just allow it to happen, because that means that there was some disconnect between what you thought it was and the ultimate like final creation, or it just means something to someone else because they have different experiences.
Yeah. I mean, that happens all the time. Ultimately, I'm making things for my purpose. but somebody might see it and say, oh, that's my favorite color. That means a lot to me. That's why I love the piece. But for me, the work wasn't about the color. It was about the form. And I'm fine with people interpreting it the way that they want. Again, and we've spoken about this, for me so much, I love and I live in the moment of making something. That's my whole world, and that's where I live. How people want to interpret something after that, I'm not precious about. I know that I've gotten my fix in the creating. That's where my special moment is. The fact that it can mean something else to somebody else and bring them joy for their own reasons, like that's cool. But like, I got my moment with it, and both are valid, and I'm fine with it.
And that's also why you don't skip any part of the process.
Yeah, no shortcuts. Why would you want to take a shortcut? I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, normally it's production, but
yeah.
you're not doing production. He's doing one of a kind, one off.
Yeah.
You'll never make the same piece twice.
No, I get it. For paying the bills, I totally get it. I think I'd probably do something else to pay the bills. Like, I don't know, work half the week doing like a regular job, and then in the creative part, just be creative, not think about paying the bills for the other half.
Yeah, just make it work.
Yeah, make it work, yeah.
You were talking to me yesterday about how I was just asking, like, financially, how does this come to be? And you were talking about Daniel Brush's experience.
Yeah.
And how he would have to, like, sometimes remelt pieces just to have the material that he needed.
Yeah, I know from how I interpret lots of questions they get asked to me on social media. I feel like people are impatient or don't realize what it takes to get somewhere. Like, people might look at me and think about what I'm doing and think, like, how do you get there? But not realize, like, I'm 47 now. I've been professionally making jewelry for 30 years. In terms of being super creative like this, I've only been lucky enough to do it maybe for 10 years. So there was 20 years of like work to earn skills and earn money that led up to me being able to be as freely creative as I am now. So,
and it wasn't like a part-time thing as he was describing. It was every single day.
Every single day.
Like 10 hours minimum a day for 20 years.
Never. That's why I started working retail and making jewelry when I was about 16. I never went to a single high school party. Never had a birthday party. Never went to like a nightclub, or like, I had holidays. I wasn't totally working every single day. But like, in terms of the, not even sacrifice, because I loved what I was doing.
Yeah.
I just feel like, again, interpreting the questions I get, I feel like people think that there's some magic pen they can buy, or some magic tool, or some magic Instagram post they can put out there where they get to do what they want straight away. And that's just not reality. You have to work. I mean, if you've got the money to begin with, that might be the reality, or if you're super lucky, maybe. But for the most part, you just have to work super hard for 10, 20 years, and then maybe you can be lucky enough to earn the honor of doing what you want.
Yeah.
But you have to survive the hard part first.
And I'm trying to navigate that now, because by my age in your lifetime, you had about 10 years on me.
I had a head start.
Yeah. You guys started really early, and I still feel, I'm young, and I know now that this is what I want to do, and I'm committed, I'm committed for the rest of my life. But it's still almost like, it's a bit of a trip to think about how you have just had a path that you were so blessed to have figured out so early.
I think actually, as you say that, I think the important part isn't what you do or how you do it at all. There's many different paths to take. The important part and the thing to hold on to and make sure you've got before you go on this journey is make sure that you've got the love and the passion, because things are going to be tough. Things are going to go wrong, and you are going to have very difficult, frustrating situations. If you don't love it, you're not going to survive the 10 or 20 years. It doesn't matter if you go to a particular jewelry school or if you learn this particular technique, all of that doesn't matter. If you've got love and a real passion for what you do beyond anything else, then you're going to survive and make it through it. It doesn't matter if you focus on just stringing shells onto a string, or if you focus on wax carving, or even if you focus on 3D printing or something. If you really love what you do, then you're going to be able to survive the difficult times and get to a point where you have creative freedom.
Yeah, and I've actually thought about this as well, and I think even beyond passion, I agree with you that there's the love, but I think even passion can be fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think what even is maybe more true to what I'm experiencing is just a deep curiosity. And I think I'm actually driven by curiosity more than I'm driven by passion.
Okay. I think that would work then.
Yeah.
As long as you can keep that curiosity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the cool thing that I found about jewelry is I'm learning something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as I continue to learn, I feel pretty fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's where, I've gotten stuck before, where I was in a situation where I couldn't keep learning, and then I was just kind of
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about that in the previous podcast. When you learn exactly what to do, then you're not creating, you're just working from that point.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add? No. You're such a deep and thoughtful thinker, creator, and being in your studio has been just one of the highlights of my entire career. So thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me here 2 days back to back, and just letting me, pick your brain and see your shop and see your space. It's always a privilege to see where someone creates. It's a very personal thing, and I don't take it lightly that you have shared that with me. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Yeah, it is weird to hear a different voice in the studio. I really don't have visitors. So it's been a learning experience for everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Great to have you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. See you next time.
We did it.
Good job.
Now we learned that it stopped recording 3 minutes.